Despite it being the dead of the NBA offseason, Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse are still working to improve the Sixers team and set them up for the best possible success both in the short and long term. I'm going to break down two notable additions that came off the Sixers Summer League team in Judah Mintz and Max Fiedler. Talk about what specifically these players can bring to the organization, what their chances are of sticking around, and overall why I still think this is a win for the Sixers here. Now, to dive into exactly what happened here, we have this tweet from shout out to Matt Murphy of the Sixers here, tweeting out official that the Sixers have signed Judah Mintz, who averaged 12.4 points per game with them at Vegas Summer League. Mintz last season at Syracuse produced 18.8 points per game, which ranks second in the ACC. Also 4.4 assists and 2.1 steals, which respectively ranked fourth and second in the conference there. He is a guy who showed a little bit of something in Summer League. He's a guy who very much fits the mold of that bucket and a problem type player that he can catch fire in a hurry. The biggest red flag and why he did not hear his name drafted or have a guaranteed spot in the NBA thus far is the efficiency. That he is a player that shot 30% or below in both seasons in college. Last season, just around 28% from beyond the three-point arc there. That is not something that's going to cut it at the NBA level and something that he does have to play through. But the Sixers are taking a chance on this guy. He does have a lot of good instincts. I was pretty impressed with his defensive ability, particularly with generating steals and poking the ball out, things like that. He's only 6'3", so he is very much clearly cut from the guard mold, but a guy that I do think is worth taking a chance on here. Now, the other player that came into the fold for this Sixers team, we do have Max Fiedler, who was signed to an Exhibit 10 contract. Tony Jones breaking the news here. Although we did have this article from Rice University, where Max Fiedler is initially from, that came out a couple months ago to this point. And to break down exactly what he's saying, this coming from Hoops Hype. First off, it says the Sixers have officially signed undrafted rookie big man Max Fiedler to an Exhibit 10 contract, according to a team press release. Philadelphia's intent to sign Fiedler was reported just after the draft. He most recently appeared in a pair of games for the 76ers during the Las Vegas Summer League, averaging 2.0 points and 2.5 rebounds. Exhibit 10 contracts allow players to earn bonuses worth up to $77.5 thousand if they're waived by their NBA teams, and then spend at least 60 days with the club's G League affiliate, in this case the Delaware Blue Coats. And to dive into a little bit more of what specifically was said, this coming from Rice University here, it's written that the past season, Fiedler averaged 9.3 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 5.3 assists. He was second in the American Athletic Conference in rebounding, third in field goal percentage at 66.3%, assist to turnover ratio at 2.25, and sixth in double doubles with 9 on the season. He also had 5.5 defensive rebounds while leading the league in offensive rebounds at 3.7. His field goal percentage of 66.3% is the third highest in school history, and the 169 assists are the fourth most in a season in school history, which is pretty notable for a guy playing at the big man spot there. The article continues on to say that the India Atlantic Florida native finished his career at Rice as the all-time leader in rebounds, assists, assist-to-turnover ratio, field goal percentage, games played, and games started, while also placing second in blocks, 8th in field goals made, and 14th in scoring. He's just the second player in school history with 1,000 points and 1,000 rebounds, and the only player in NCAA Division I history to record 1,000 career points, 1,000 rebounds, 500 assists, 100 blocks, and 100 steals. Last year at UTSA, he became just the second player in school history with a triple-double, recording 23 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists. In his career, he averaged 9.3 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. So a lot to break down there, a lot of good stats for Max Fiedler there. To shoot you directly straight here, this is not a guy that I envision sticking around with the Sixers in the long run. To his credit, he is out there playing the Rico Hines runs, which is good. There's a number of young Sixers players there that is exciting to see, and he did see a little bit of him in Summer League. I honestly think that if this was a guy they felt super strong about or was showing out in a way that he deserved to be, we would have seen much more. That, as that article indicated, just 2 games at the Summer League level. Guy very forgettable in those brief 2 moments that he did step foot on the floor. And I did go back, watch a little bit of his college tape here. What's clear to me is 2 things. Number one is Daryl Morey very clearly desires this archetype of player, a big man that can play make a little bit. I think when they brought over Philip Petrusev, that was kind of the concept behind him a little bit, that he's a good passer for his size. You can play through him the post a little bit. He can still step out and shoot threes, and is a guy that, is just solid in those categories. They're becoming more and more prevalent in the NBA, and the Sixers have not been able to get their hands on one. I think that's the archetype of what's envisioned for Max Fiedler, but to be completely honest, I don't think the talent is quite up to the standard there. I think this is an example that we did see Fiedler play above his just, level in college, where he was clearly the best player at Rice and playing guys that weren't up to the NBA standard by any means. But I do think he will be a little bit swallowed up by the NBA speed, athleticism, the pace of play. I do think when watching a little bit of his college college tape, those are stuff that are going to be quite the adjustment for him. I do hope he proves me wrong and is a guy that sticks around and helps the Sixers team, but that is kind of what I'm seeing by first look there. Now, I did want to acknowledge specifically what the Exhibit 10 deals are, that this is something becoming more and more common in the NBA. And to me, my biggest message or takeaway from the Sixers making these moves is it's a great thing that they're just paying attention to building up the young talent. That I think that's been an area that's been neglected in the Sixers organization in the pre-Daryl Morey era, that there's so much attention paid to the big-time stars, bringing in the next James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, whatever the name may be, that sometimes the next era falls through the crack. And when you look around the NBA at these great organizations, it's because there's always a player waiting in the wing. There's a guy ready to step up when there's an injury or when there's a contract dispute and a guy needs to walk. You have another player ready to fill that role. That's kind of the pipeline that I do think the Sixers are beginning to develop, and these Exhibit 10 deals are a key part of it. So to dive into exactly what they are, it is said that Exhibit 9 and Exhibit 10 contracts are commonly referred to as, quote, summer contracts or, quote, training camp contracts. These players are brought in to provide competition in training camp, to give coaches some extra bodies for drills and scrimmages, and sometimes to prove they are worthy of a regular season roster spot. Both Exhibit 9 and Exhibit 10 contracts are 1 year, fully non-guaranteed contracts. A team could technically sign a player who was from another team or from outside the NBA to a 4-year maximum contract on a summer contract, not an Exhibit 9 or Exhibit 10 deal, but that's never happened and likely will never happen for many reasons. In addition, they do not count against the salary cap or luxury tax. They are very much make good deals in every sense of the word. So basically, you're giving a guy an opportunity, you're giving a little bit more guaranteed money, and there are some bonuses built into if you make the G League team, if you make the NBA team. It basically sets you on a pathway for more success than just kind of floating out there as a free agent, but not a lot of guarantee that comes with it. But once again, my takeaway is just bringing in these kind of young talents, getting another look at different options that these Sixers could have to rely on. And I don't think that just applies to the very bottom tier of the roster. If I want to pull up the Sixers depth chart here, even a guy like take this season, for example, we knew the focus of the Sixers offseason, that they were quote unquote big game hunting, looking to bring in these superstars in free agency, which they achieved in grabbing Paul George, as well as names like Caleb Martin and some other notable pieces that will add to the Sixers team. I think a lot of us approached it with the expectation that this NBA draft would simply be flipping that pick for a veteran, that there would be no usage of the pick that ultimately became Jared McCain, and shout out to Adem Bona in the second half. But what that meant to me is they're both looking short-term and long-term. Now, when you look at the top 10 in this overall roster right here, that's really going to be the crunch time playoff rotation. Now, there could absolutely be some names in that third string or some of the other teams that exceed and do earn the chance, but the reality is that it's going to be a narrow bench for the Sixers season, as they do ultimately hope to have the championship aspirations that we are all seeking for. But a guy like Jared McCain, you can get it on both ends here, that this is a guy who is more NBA ready than I think a lot of people are giving him credit. I do think he will be in the mix for minutes and kind of a rotational role with this Sixers team, so that is why the selection was made there. But in the long run, this is now a player that's developing, that there is this possibility for, in the downside or late years of Joel Embiid's career, you're talking about maybe a Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain backcourt. Who knows if it fully works? I get the size concerns, but just conceptually that you are bringing in these good talents that can develop and keep this window open as long as possible. I think Adem Bona is another great example of that, is rather than paying a guy, well, they kind of did in bringing in Andre Drummond, but rather than just cycling through the veterans that you know exactly what they are and, you know, their ceiling is pretty limited as a player, you're taking a shot on a young guy who can develop and be a key part of the Sixers team, as I would argue that the backup center spot in Philadelphia is as important as it comes everywhere else. So overall, not something that I think moves the meter from a championship perspective, these moves that the Sixers are making, but I very much do appreciate this due diligence being done by Daryl Morey, that it's not just focused on these big-time stars, that we know what we have with the top dogs of the Sixers team, the Joel Embiids, the Paul George, the Tyrese Maxey, even bringing in additions like Caleb Martin and like Andre Drummond, who are each going to play some key roles on this team. We know how valuable they are. But by keeping your options open, the window expanded as long as possible, I love that there is just this desire to continually improve this roster and add young talent, because you never know how important that could be down the line. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Once again, I am much more excited about Judah Mintz here. That is a guy I could see potentially paving a path on the Sixers team and could be worth sticking around. Not as optimistic about Max Fiedler, but would love to be wrong. But let me know if you guys feel good about either one of those names, any thoughts that you have below, and anything else that's on your mind. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like, and I'll talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.